At this time, the Health Equity Council is very proud to present Camilla Cruz, one of the state of New Mexico's gems and upcoming poets. She is a student at the Institute of American Indian Arts. She is also part of the Native American Budget and Policy Institute, where she supports the work to improve health disparities of tribes across the state. Thank you so much, Camilla Cruz from Okewinge, for joining us this evening. And we're thrilled to have you share on Facebook and with all of our community some of your poetry and open this evening up for us. So thank you, Camilla, and I'm going to hand over everything to you.
Thank you, Carmela. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's a great honor to be asked to be the feature artist for this evening's Health Equity Council. It's a talk show that I've been honored to co-host with Dr. Roybal. And I'm currently a master's student at the Institute of American Indian Arts, where I'm working on my first manuscript for my first book. So these readings are great for me to get exposure. So I will be sharing 6 poems and followed by a short fiction piece. Thank you. Empty of men. He untangles blue spruce hillsides, looking for a brother. A sturdy double core like the young evergreen trees grown back from fire. Dragging an axe for company, humming a solo sung by his cradle board. He skips flint rocks upstream, catching sparks on the river current into the mouth of trout. Waiting on a wolf, he howls. His own voice echoes, but he is alone. Slathering himself in cool blackness, his own tracks look back from the mud. Follicles, vertebrae, pores absorbed. Young wanderers must feed themselves. The mountains are empty of men. This next piece can be found in Yellow Arrow Publishing. It's a women-owned publishing company for self-identified female writers. This is actually my first publication. Short leather. I surrendered to the dirt floor, drawing on my grandmother's tactile techniques. Time to tie 2 pairs of moccasins. Accustomed to a woman's full-length, mature buckskin wraps, I expected to share with the ground longer. But their feet were so tiny. Stuffed cotton in the toe of my son's yellow haye maca shoes. Summer clan from his father, his tete, the sun, me. 3 knots and done. My daughter danced out of her shoes. Once, twice, 3, I sat on her. Guio'e, a little woman. She giggled, taking her brother's hand. You are my partner. Yiya has given you to me and you are mine. Vamos, andale, alligator. She stepped out, taking my son to pray. Leaving me, a barefoot floor, the mother, the sacred support for them to walk upon. This next piece I wrote to read at a conference with Dr. Roybal for food equity and health. Old rhythms. When Tewa men were away, the women would go to war. Defending planted grains, seeded wombs, hiding doulas and legends in underground storerooms. Repositories of birth, elk bone brine, and this story. A bow slept in the man's place, taught, practiced, shined by juniper sap, itching to quiver like a man for his wife. Spinach root smeared by skilled fingers, under the eyes, ear to ear, a dark carnal line. Left cheekbone, adolescence, over the nose, motherhood, across towards death. War songs hummed in the night. Daughters clung to their brothers, adopting their mother's names, woman's mature Black pottery, every prayer on. The planting belonged to the war women, songs calling squash and earth under delicate feet. Rematriation is an old rhythm, sung by men who knew land and children need to nurse. This next piece is featured in Tribal College Journal. It's the 2022 winner for Best Poetry. Belts. Femininity cinching the hips, woven wide, wrapping our waists round and round. Thick weave wool, red, green, and black braided. Grandma said, if you can breathe, it's not tight enough. For want of childbirthing curves to flare and baby feeding breasts to billow, it strengthens our spines, building backs against weak eyes. We wear them to dance, to give cornmeal, to learn our songs, to name newborns, to deliver food to the dead. 9 babies later, his grandmother still spun the same belt over her lap. I've only birthed 3. What excuse does my abdomen flex against my woven core? For the babies, they are simple, twisted red and black yarn, twined by little fingers for fresh rib cages. 4 days old, my daughter's center was tied and balanced. We are born belted to our mothers, cinched by the weavers. These next 2 are new and are going to be part of the manuscript for my first book. Kilt. I brought him home on summer's hat brim. Satya sewed. Indigo threads soaked in water. Huckleberry dyes seeped deep 40 years ago refuse to run. Dimpled infant hands squish balls of yarn, saved for the hem of a wall. Cream-colored monk's cloth, embroidered by Eastern windows lace. Cattail green stitches climb the indigo base to his waist where the rain sash ties. A wage wide for volcanic suns, a wage woven wide to clothe multi-generations of summer men. And the last piece that I'll read is a short excerpt from a fiction piece I'd submitted, which also got featured for the best fiction at Tribal College Journal this year. The drum. Thambesado craves to be heard. Drums live off the tediously ground prayers that are cornmeal. They should soak in fresh air and sunlight daily, given the chance to absorb the happenings of the world. That is how they set a tempo. This drum sits in the corner, and for never being used, he looks worn and tired. Modern women live here, rushing past him in leggings and boots, smelling like coffee and Maybelline. They are potent with traditional knowledge, but none of the time. Alerts and alarms start their days, not the feeding of the drum. Thambesado is clothed in tight sinew and a lively floral scarf to keep him warm, but mostly he slumbers in his corner, unheard and unknown to visitors. If he had not been mentioned now, would you even know he was here? The home is always warm from fresh oven bread, but the heat does not reach the drum. He only sees the crumbs left by the little boys running past. These boys are young and living like heroes. Instead of a poster of Superman, the home has Popeye on the walls. He wore his hair long and tied with coral. It was his shield. He rode a mule, not a horse, because they were sure-footed and steady. He smeared his face with mud and wore red silk for a cape. The little boys ran around with their shirts off, riding the res dogs, pretending to be him, the protector of this place. The brothers have different fathers, and neither have the grit to live here. Dwelling in a traditional home comes with cultural duty. The vigas rain dirt, held together by only straw and mud. The walls are so thick there's no cell service, and the outside washes away after a storm. Cool in the summer and toasty in the cold months, the adobe is a temporal repository of memory. The drum's pulse quickens. With the little superheroes soaring around the house, arms extended and hair wild, the drum quivers slightly. There are finally boys in the home, mixing dirt with their feet, tracking in mud. Tambesado stretches and flexes in his sinew. Perhaps one morning soon, a little hand will feed him and the village will feel his tremble. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. We have a few minutes here. I just wanted to maybe a couple few questions, in relation to, raising boys and raising traditionally and all the different, pieces. I know a lot of this motherhood and this responsibility is, woven into your work. And so I just wanted to give you a moment just to kind of talk about, it was beautiful work. And I just want to give you the opportunity just to talk about some of the context behind that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I made the conscious decision to move back home to my ancestral home to raise my children. I grew up in Albuquerque the majority of my life, but when I became a mother, it was very important that I established myself and my children's roots here in my family home where my great-grandmother grew up. So they have that when they walk out their door, they hear the drums and they hear our language being spoken. Those are very big priorities to me. And, I have my oldest is, my daughter's crazy. She helps me keep the boys in line. But I've just always noticed how gentle they all are. And I think that comes from that cultural upbringing. There is this innate sense of responsibility that they have to the ground that they walk on, to the language that they speak, to their elders, respecting their satya, knowing that without them, we wouldn't be here. And I find that creates a really important gentleness and calmness to them that they take with them to school and that they take with them to their friends and that they take to their family. And it's been my biggest mission right now in life is to raise my children traditionally. So that continues on. And they want it. It's definitely part of their desire to be a part of our community and to be Tewa, and they absolutely love it. And this month, just for Indigenous Peoples Month, they wore their moccasins all the time, and I couldn't get Gia out of her traditional clothing, and it's just part of who they are. And me writing my language like this and telling my story like this, I want them to be able to pick up a book off of their library bookshelf and see their language and see their mother's name and see their family and their people where they came from.
Thank you, Camilla. I really appreciate you spending this time with us this evening and just giving us this really beautiful opening. Welcome everyone to the Health Equity Council's Salud y Querencia web talk series. We're really, really happy and super proud of all of the work that our team, co-producer Anna Horner, have put together, Diana, all of the Health Equity Council group, as we've been building on this public space for us to provide community, true, community engagement and talk about a lot of these different issues that are affecting our communities, especially here in New Mexico, in the city of Albuquerque, in every rural corner of our state, so that we can bring these things to the table for our families and really think through as public health specialists, how do we intervene? How do we provide support? What needs to be done? And this is really the space that we're able to talk and bring all of these, whether it's from the policy, research, down to, our mothers and family and fathers on the ground. And so this is just something for us to connect. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We are sponsored through CalOG and CDC, New Mexico Alliance of Health Councils. This started out as a very humble project to bring awareness around COVID-19. And we realized that a lot of these health inequities and disparities go far beyond anything that we've ever seen or experienced. And we want to go ahead and, open these spaces up. We want to just thank our guests, our past guests, our future guests. And today we have some very special guests to talk about and address the concept and healthy masculinity, fatherhood, you know, violence prevention, sexual violence, what's happening in our schools and our streets, and how do we address this? So we just want to welcome everyone. You're welcome to turn your cameras on at this point. I'm going to look to my right, I have Larry, host right here. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Larry. This is one of our special guests. And then we'll move down to Felipe Beltran, who's visiting us all from Atrisco High School, and Speed One, who's one of our community activists and advocates out there. So go ahead, Larry, give us a little bit of your background, and we'll move from there. Thank you.
Good morning. Híjole. Good afternoon. Good to be here. I'm happy to be in this space with all of you, brothers and sisters. I see some people that I've known for a while. It's good to have you here and good to be with you all in this space. Yeah, I don't know where to start, but I'll just start kind of from the beginning, I guess. My name is Larry Hinojos. My pronouns are he, him, his. I actually use cisgendered. I don't know if anybody knows what cisgendered is. It just means my gender at birth. My assumed gender at birth is the same now. So I just like to point that out. But yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up in the Sunset, South Broadway area. My family is from Hatch, Las Cruces area. That was like my where I'd go home all the time. That's my hometown. So Hatch Chili means something a lot more to me because my family actually were pickers, still are. I've lived in Albuquerque for basically all my life. Sunset, South Broadway area. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s when many inner city communities were struggling with crack pandemic, and my family as well was struggling with addiction as a very young age, probably about 13 and 14 myself, as long as many people in my family, as well as, living that gang thug life. And then I had my son about 18, 19 years old and basically turned my life around. But it was a struggle. I basically had no kind of education, no kind of work, anything. And so it was really difficult to find my way. And so I did a number of different jobs, many jobs, everything you can think of, try to find my way. At one point, I was actually going to school during the day. I was coaching a soccer team, and then I was working at FedEx at night. And a friend of mine was working at the Rape Crisis Center, and basically just brought me into trainings. And I literally from there seen a whole nother side that I never would have seen. Was exposed to things that as a male never ever had to worry about, never even had to think about. And so it really sparked my interest because I had a son and I wanted to teach him different. And so that really was my, I don't know how to say it, like the eye-opening moment for me was like, I want to learn this. This is something I'm struggling with because I had no kind of male figure around me, right? My dad was never around. The father that I had was very abusive, alcohol, right? He actually was white, and so he was very racist to me and my family, right, and to my mother. And so that was something that we had to deal with. So it was like when I had my son, there was no, I didn't have any kind of mentorship, right, or anything like that. But I had a number of really cool friends that believed in me and that would actually guide me even when I would say or do something stupid, right? They would check me, right? And so it was like that love was there, and that they kind of helped fuel my fire and help me grow. And I always tell people I get called to do trainings everywhere across the country, and I love it, but I'm not academic, right? Like I'm not that kind of person, right? I'm a community member. I literally have an electrical trades degree. So, like I'm a straight up community member who one day said, I want something different, right? I want I can't live in this life no more and expect different, right? And so I always put that out there that, I think that's kind of when I think of healthy masculinity, it really is paving your own way, right? I think a lot of times the status quo for men is following people right off the cliff, right? And so, yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell. I basically seen a lot of domestic and sexual violence in my family, and as I got older, wanted to do difference and started working with the Rape Crisis Center. I started doing trainings around racism, sexual violence, domestic violence, and in 2005 and 2006, I helped to start one of the first sexual assault programs in the state of New Mexico, directly geared towards young men and boys of color about redefining masculinity, which was really great. And I was really blessed to be surrounded by a support system of men, women, and LGBTQ community that supported our movement. And it was really great. It was awesome. It was really fun. And I'm also part of the board of T4B, another young men organization that does the same thing today. And I know Johnny is on right here. I'll let him talk about what he does, because he does some really awesome stuff. I've been working with Johnny for over 10 years now. So it's really cool to have him here now. So yeah, I'll get off. I can keep talking. So I just want to say it's been great, all the stuff that I've learned, and everything that I learned, I feel like I want to pass on. And that's where I feel like I can be a service, right? So thank you for the space. Thank you for letting me be here. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for sharing. We're going to move over to Speed 1. Thank you so much for being here.
Yo, yo, yo. You guys got me? Am I here? Yo, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Speed.
Hey, man. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, I can't even. I was raised in a beautiful home. I was raised with a lot of love. I was raised in a neighborhood that I'm very proud of. I was raised dead center in Barelas in the 70s, man. So, I seen a bit of this, that, and the third, but growing up, that was normal to us. Domestic violence was normal to us. Heavy drinking on the spot was heavy to us. That was normal. So like that, to the things we were exposed to being young men, we carried a lot of that with us, thinking that, that was okay. And, not until you get into your further along the lines of making decisions on who you want to be and where you want to be in life is when you start realizing like that's not okay. Those lifestyles were not okay. The young lady who spoke first, who was reading that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poetry, that drum poet, that was beautiful. But anyway, she was talking about how her family and her kids, how they wear traditional clothing, the traditional dress. Like me being from the hood, being from Barelas, what was our traditional clothing? Like I look back at that right now. It's like, where was my traditional clothing? What is my traditional style besides like what we embrace as Chicano or hood or G'd up, or you know what I mean? So anyway, I guess I was supposed to say my background: Speed 1, DJ, father, proud pop, community guy. I don't fuck with politics. I fuck with my people. That's it, and I try to keep it moving on that note. I do anything I can for the kiddos. And yeah, man, I volunteer over 90 hours every month in the local school. And basically I try to fill in the gaps where these kids don't have, where a lot of these young men are just starving, to have some kind of interaction with a grown man, with an adult, with somebody that's willing to guide them. And unfortunately they find that in a lot of the wrong spots, when there isn't somebody to jump in and say, hey, I got you. let's play football, let's do some artwork, let's listen to some music, or whatever the case may be, and so I think me growing up in a neighborhood like Varela's in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where my eyes seen a lot, right? I seen a lot of things, but my heart experienced a lot of love. And so I think that set me up for success to be a volunteer and to work with kids, because I know what it is to have a lot of love. I know what it is to make those right decisions because of the love that I had in my home. You know what I mean? So I think more than anything, uh, me being able to volunteer time. Now I don't got money to give. I ain't got nothing like that, but I got a lot of good experiences and good the value, the time and the effort that we put into our kids and into our neighborhood is amazing, man. And I think if we just do that a little bit more, each one of us, I think we'll all be in a better place for our kiddos, man, and for ourselves. Anyway, I'm a DJ. I'm a graffiti artist. I'm a homie. You could call, like Tupac said, I'm here when the homies call. So holla.
Thank you, Speed. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to get into like a lot of the work that you do and the way that, we had this conversation the other day. We're talking about how we need to do better. We need to, this violence and these shootings and all of these things taking place. UNM campus, we just had this last week, and just so much going on. And so
And those are supposed to be safe places, man. These
right.
these educational facilities are supposed to be our safe places, and I know UNM is not there's school shootings all over, and that's what's crazy to me is that there's the matrix, right? And I always tell the kids this with the music and stuff, like there's a matrix, and you are being exposed to death and violence and being desensitized to shootings and all this stuff, being it's a very sexist world too, with the rap music and everything. Like, I'm from that. I mean, look at these ceilings that I'm sitting in a studio that I've pride myself on. But anyway, these safe spaces are being we're sacrificing our safe spaces, man, and while we're bickering with each other about laws and rules and who's right and label me this and label me that and everything, kids are dying. And we need to just get back to the basics of being a community and put the politics and the labels and everything else on hold for a second at least. And let's just get back to making sure we're okay and making sure that the kids are okay. One thing that kind of trips me out too is that everybody's okay with being depressed nowadays. Everybody's okay with talking like, oh, I'm so depressed. Oh, my depression's kicking in. Oh, like here in Burke, they got a thing called Still Sad. And it's like this nightclub thing. And it's just like everybody has embraced being sad instead of embraced on finding out how good you are. Finding out, don't beat yourself up, man. Let's start embracing how good of a people we actually are. And the matrix again, you sit down and you watch TV and it's 50 commercials about how many drugs you need to be on. And then Drew Carey comes back on with The Price is Right, trying to make you feel better. And then and here we go with 50 more fucking commercials about how sad you are and how pitiful your life is. And so like those types of things are a matrix that are really hurting, especially our kids, because our kids, the young men that we're dealing with right now, we're vulnerable. No matter how, if you're a kid, if you're a teenager, if you're old DJ like me, you're very vulnerable to what society is throwing at you. And and we just need to get back to the basics, I think, man. And so like the homie before me said, I'm here because I'm surrounded by good people, not here because I'm a scholar, or I got a degree, or I got this educational background. I live off experience, and my experiences have brought me to a bunch of very, very good people who have really, given me opportunities to sit down and speak like this. So, big up to you, Doc. I appreciate you, man.
Of course, thank you. I appreciate you and all the work that you do in the community, and your unique way of addressing violence, using that through your nightclub and being able
Hey,
to
man,
talk to, 400 or
let me
500
tell you,
teen, young
I,
adults there. So
I had 500, I had 500 people on the dance floor the other night, 500, because I had just asked what our numbers were. And my demographic is probably, we're probably 85% 21 to 30-year-olds in there, right? And in the middle of that, midnight, we rocking, we cooking in there, man. I mean, the dance floor is packed. People are just filling in. I stopped the music to address violence in our city. I stopped the music to address the gun violence amongst our young men in our city. And I'll tell you what, man, out of 100, I broke it down in 5 hours. I probably play about 135 records. Out of those 135 records, maybe 5 records have a little bit of gunplay talk in there, right? But I'm very conscious about what I play because I have a platform at that point. At that point, I have 500 youngsters standing in front of me, man. And I have a conscious decision to make. Do I just play whatever's cool and whatever's hot and whatever's out there talking all this nonsense? Or do I give them a feel-good vibe and make them feel good about themselves and being able to party in an environment where there's no violence spoken and there's no ugliness given to them? It's all true. It's a vibe. It's not a manufactured vibe. It's not this just go the easy route and play all the Drakes and all the 21 Savages and all the and all the violent stuff, right? Let's actually think about what we're going to give these youngsters. And yeah, man, I stopped the crowd and they all cheered for a better way, and they all felt the moment, you know what I mean? And yeah, I'll do it again. Was it the right time or the right place? Until somebody tells me where the right time and the right place is, I'll keep doing what I do. And I had the opportunity to holler at these youngsters in their environment. Really, is what it was. It was their area, and I spoke to them about it real quick. And I got a lot of peaceful kids after that. After that night, when they left the nightclub, it was all love. Everybody was chilling. Everybody was on a really good vibe. And that's what I'm there for. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm at the school. That's why I'm in the community doing what I do, man, because I feel like we have to, if you have a platform, speak on what's going to better, because I want this to last. I want to come to another meeting. I want my neighborhood to last. I want my house to hold value. I want my career to have longevity. And if I'm not securing it with positive vibes, my house is gonna lose equity. My neighborhood's not gonna be desirable. My job isn't gonna last. So you always have to very consciously move and say, hey, how are we doing things that is gonna give us longevity? And I don't think I have like I'm Chicano, and y'all can break that down however you want, but that's what I was called growing up, and that's what I clung to. But I with everybody. I don't have like, my people or my area or my thing, white kids come fuck with me. All my brothers, I'm down. I'm here for you. I'm here for my people, man. And if you need help, I got you. No matter your race, color, creed, vote, religion, let's roll. I'm with you. So, in a nutshell, and I know that's one big nutshell I just gave you, but that's what
Thank you
I'm trying
for
to do.
Steve.
So I'm
I wanna
trying to.
No, this is good. This is good. And we're going to get more into the work that you do. You put a lot of hours into the youth. We know we have a high percentage of young men without fathers. There's not a lot of direction. You can break that down statistically, but we all know we're aware of, what's happening in our schools. So the work that you do is very, very valuable. And so
Thank
thank
you.
you Speed. I'm going to introduce my co-host this evening, Diana Lopez from the Department of Health and from our Health Equity Council. She's also part of our vaccine team and one of our core members of Salud y Querencia. Diana will be introducing our next guest, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roybal, and thank you, Larry and Speedwin, for that awesome. I mean, just everything you both said is just so impactful and just really resonates with me, you know, not only on a well, like on a personal level, I mean, on so many levels, but everything you said was just absolutely so spot on and amazing and really just powerful to hear. Well, as Dr. Roybal said, my name is Diana Lopez and I work for the New Mexico Department of Health. I'm in health promotion. So I have the awesome opportunity of working with a whole bunch of different community partners, which I'm blessed to do. And one of those amazing partners is the Health Equity Council. So I just feel really, really happy to be a part of Salud y Querencia. And as you, Larry, and Speedone were talking, I really kind of thought about the word querencia and how we've talked about it and how the meaning and the, I'm from northern New Mexico, I'm from Taos, and you know, that querencia, the love, the home, the, you know, the feeling of where you are. And I got that a lot from what you've been talking about. And we also have a third guest with us tonight, Felipe Beltran. Hi, Felipe. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Felipe is a teacher at Atrisco High School, and I'll hand the mic over to him and let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about what he does.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Felipe Beltran. I'm a teacher at Atrisco Heritage Academy High School here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I currently teach freshman health, and I have a couple of sections of nutrition. My 6th year in education. I'm actually a graduate from Atrisco Heritage. Been living in Albuquerque for most of my life, except when I went and got my undergrad in Oklahoma, but grew up here in Westgate, went to Marion Binford, went to Truman, and eventually I was second graduating class from Atrisco Heritage. Ended up building some great relationships there with a lot of the staff that's still there. Ended up going to college for 4 years, came back, got my degree in education, and was able to go back and start teaching at Atrisco. Think I'm blessed to be able to go back to Atrisco just because I'm able to try and make an impact, try to make some changes. Growing up, again, I can't, I grew up in a good home, just like Speed One was talking about. I was blessed to be brought up in a good home. Both my parents, hardworking. They both came over from Mexico, so I can have a better future, a better life. Just a lot of the students I'm currently teaching, hardworking households, and then the students are trying to make that a reality for the parents. As a lot of the issues that were discussed earlier, that were brought up, sometimes that's not able to be made possible because of the distractions of the negative actions and negative activities that some of our youth are participating in. I recently also got my master's degree in educational leadership. I'm hoping here in the near future to start going into an administration position where I really could hopefully make a change in order for these students here in Albuquerque, here in my community, to start reaching their goals and start making their parents' sacrifices felt, and making the sacrifices their parents made to give them the opportunity to go to school here possible. I mean, other than that, let's get the show going.
Thank you so much, Felipe. Okay, we're gonna start with this concept, healthy masculinity. So I'm going to open this up to our guests to kind of define in their own words healthy masculinity. We'll pass to the next, and then I want to open it to our audience. We have a lot of people watching that might not be familiar. Some of our families, what is healthy masculinity? Why are we even talking about this? What is toxic masculinity? Or what does this look like? What does this look like in the, people can identify, they know, they see the violence, they see the different pieces happening. We're just going to put a name to it. And just let you talk about it in your own way. Also, after, we'll open it up to our guests to kind of chime in, getting into this work. Why does it matter? Why does it matter for fatherhood? How do we do better? How do we change the norm? We're going to get more into that. But for now, let's just do a brief kind of, actually, I'm just going to ask one of our guests to kind of offer that, and then let others kind of chime in. So to any of you right now, if, how would you define, what's healthy masculinity? Maybe there's a very professional term for it. Maybe there's just something, but I want to share this with our audience so that we can kind of start talking about the crux and the core of this conversation and why this is so critical.
Real quick, I didn't even know, like, to be honest with you, I'm so old school, right? Like, I came up from the old school ways. When somebody even at first told me the term toxic masculinity, I didn't know what they were talking about. I was like, what do you mean? Like, because to me, it was always machismo. It was always just being a dude, just being one of the homies, being just being you as a man, being a man, be a man. How many times we heard that? Man up, be a man. And so, like, I didn't understand when people said, like, that, the toxic side of it. I really didn't understand. And then, I started to see young boys, right? I started to see the younger guys being mean to each other and being mean to girls and being mean. I was like, hold up, wait up, hold up. That's what the machismo, like, to man up, and that's bad. That's bad what they're doing. That is toxic. But we also have the healthy side of it, to me, is being a man, and yes, manning up, and yes, doing the right thing, and yes, holding your being proud of who you are as a man and your familia and your work and your what you bring to the table, and helping, and swallowing your pride just to be able to make sure the greater good of everybody, and not just you, losing the ego. And then it started to dawn on me, man, like, we are taught right off the bat toxic masculinity. Right off the bat, we want to be tough. We want to be the one. We got to be, ego driven. We have to be the tough guy. We have to be all that stuff in order to survive. You know what I mean? We were taught it's not about living; it's about surviving. And I started to understand that many years ago, that that's not the life I wanted to live. I don't want to survive. I want to live a life. I want to live a beautiful life. I want to get away from the things that felt wrong. So, like, in a nutshell, if you don't know what toxic masculinity is, if you're doing something and it feels wrong, that's toxic masculinity. That's at men. If you're doing something and you feel like you're almost bullying somebody and you don't really know the terms, well, if you're being an asshole, that's toxic masculinity. And if you're not looking out for your brothers and your sisters and you're not trying to build, then you're not doing it right. So, in a nutshell, I didn't know, and I still might not know. That's why I'm surrounded by all these beautiful, educated people tonight, is because I need to know. I need to do better. I need to grow in this whole thing, because knowledge is key. And if we're not just teaching each other the right way to approach things, then I ain't no good to the kids who are surrounding me. So I need to learn. There was a lot coming from the neighborhoods I came from, man. We were very very proudful people, but we were also very ignorant to other things outside of our neighborhoods, you know? And so it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, knowing that the way you were brought up is a fucked up way you were brought up, because the mentality was not right, you know. And it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, to hold on to your traditions and the teachings. Like, was my grandpa racist? Probably was. So, but it's not, it's okay, we could fix that. Let's break those cycles, you know. Let's make things right.
The cycles, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, let's make things right. And it's up to me to say, hey, that it wasn't good, you know,
Right.
and I don't think my grandpa was a taught racist. I think he was taught to protect what he loved. And I think we were scared as brown faces to not let anybody come in and take what we had, you know. And you know, spills over, and it's good though. It takes years and years and years and years for people to admit that was wrong. Our family did that wrong, because a lot of people don't want to disgrace family names, or they don't want to do whatever, this, that, or the third. But I think you do have to stand up and say, hey man, that shit wasn't right, you know. And there's a better way we could all do things in our community. And they did what they had to do, or they did what they chose to do growing up. And life is choices. We all choose what we want to do. And yeah, man. So the whole toxic masculinity thing, I didn't even know. I was just taught it. So I'm trying to rewire up here about how to live a healthier masculinity, and how to teach that, and how to be around people that could teach me that.
So we have a few guests on. Nico Morales, I see the head bobbing. Johnny, do you want to contribute to this kind of concept and our understanding of it? Maybe you have some language for it that can kind of help us kind of work through this. Either of you?
Well, I'll babble for a little, but I don't think I have any language or great wisdom to share. I think I would like to just speak about, first of all, Fathers New Mexico is the organization that I'm with. And I think this question of fatherhood, which has come up a couple times, is a really big deal. And I think it's a big deal in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways is that I think we have a fundamental misunderstanding about some of the problems regarding fatherhood. There are definitely a lot of families, a lot of kids growing up that have absent fathers, and that's a problem. And sometimes that's the problem of that father making choices that separate him from his children. And so he's not there doing what he should be doing. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes a man is prepared to parent and father his children, and there's a whole bunch of systematic elements or individuals that are actually putting space between him and his children. And I'd like us just to recognize that, not putting blame in any one place or taking it off all men, but recognizing that phenomenon is part of the problem and really needs to stop. That's a big deal. When there are the men standing there saying, I want to support my children, I want to nurture my children, we need to let them do that, just like we need to let grandparents, aunties, uncles, moms do that. I have a tendency to ramble, so I'm just gonna get.
No worries, we'll save you. We'll
simple
save you, Johnny.
here.
That was good. Thank you. And really important points. And the work that you do there at Fathers New Mexico, really important. And so thank you.
Well, and I'll
Thank you
just
for being
say,
here tonight.
if folks have men that they know that are struggling in their fatherhood, or even just want support, that's one of the things that I think toxic masculinity contributes, is a failure to recognize as men that we need support, that nurturing is hard, that being there for your children, your family, your partner, that stuff's difficult. And to get support and to acknowledge that we don't know how to do everything, it's hard for us, right? So if you all know people men that could use that support, please feel free to let us know.
And I want to jump in and remind, all of our guests that are joining us this evening, thank you. And you're always welcome to open with questions and join this conversation around, fatherhood, healthy masculinity, the violence that ensues from a lot of these different, right now in Bernalillo County, we have 42,000, according to the census, the latest census, 42,000 single parent homes. That's men and women across the board. So we're thinking, how do we get to the bottom compared to 2010, where I think it was around, I want to say 37,000, but you see that we're just seeing this sharp increase. We're also seeing just a really sharp number increase in suicide among young males in the state of New Mexico. And we're seeing this across the board. And, there's a lot, conversations to be held around that. And sometimes it's an inadequacy or the inability to really be there as a father and a parent. Like all of these things feed into a lot of these social ills that we're really seeing. And so today we're really just trying to get to the bottom and understand and have an open conversation about, all of the different components that ensue from different talk or whatever it is, toxic masculine, or the way that we're brought up, right? The way that our communities are, violence being a normalized thing, and we want to break those cycles, and so we're here just to really talk about it and learn. And again, I'm a medical sociologist. This isn't necessarily where I specialize, so I'm really counting on community to kind of fill this in. And really, I'm learning so much from y'all's conversations, and so I'm really grateful for that. Felipe, do you want to comment on anything, or do you have any?
So you're making some really good points.
I'm sure there's not a correct definition.
So that statistic you said about the single family homes, that has a huge impact on the line of work I do. A lot of times when we have issues in the classroom with students, it tends to be they don't get that support at home. And a lot of times it's hard to get that support at home from a single family home, just because obviously as parents, we want to be there for our kids. But if it's a single family home, there might be economic issues with the money coming in. A parent might have to work 2 jobs in order to keep a roof over their head. And sometimes more important than being there for your kids, but a lot of times that's having to take care of everything on your own can take away from you actually being able to be there for their kids when it comes to the educational side of things.
Thank you, Felipe. Nico.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for hosting this conversation about masculinity. I think it's super important. Quick background, my name is Nico Morales. I'm the owner of No Halo, which is a brand that advocates for sober living. I do that through personal development. Mainly, I do the stuff that teachers can't really or don't have the time to teach. That's the stuff I like to focus on. Have much history and lived experience with opiate use disorder, alcohol use disorder. So yeah, I'm from Burque, born and raised Albuquerque. Midtown area is where I'm from. Grew up 2-parent household. Very much as everybody else has said, with a loving, caring home. But I think a lot of us kind of take that approach because that's all we know, right? It's not until we see other experiences that we kind of start to assess, like, whoa, how loving or caring was my home? And I think that's one of the first places to start, is that we have to stop the comparison. Like Felipe said, like Speed One said, like many others said, our parents come from backgrounds that are unique, and our culture is very different. Let's be honest. Here in New Mexico, we have a beautiful diversity. But a couple notes that I took down real fast to answer your question, Doctor. My definition of healthy masculinity is a man that has character and discipline. I think if a man can live by his own code of morals, then we start to begin to develop that healthy masculinity. One of those ways that I believe is missing right now in our community, just as a nation, is rite of passage. We don't have a generic rite of passage for many individuals. From Hispanic, Chicano backgrounds, the rite of passage is usually military, or the prison, or the street life somewhere. Those are the three topics that you're usually exposed to. So I think preparing young adults by showing them other ways that they can earn character within themselves, validate themselves, we start to eliminate some of these issues that were discussed earlier. The other thing that I think is super important to talk about is the illusion of perfection. That is detrimental to every household. I don't care what demographic you come from. I don't care what background you have. If there is a illusion of perfection on how you're supposed to conduct yourself, on how a perfect life is supposed to be lived, I say that very broadly, but if there's that illusion that everybody's trying to fit into a box of perfection, then we miss a lot of the other stuff, because then there's too much focus on one area of life rather than the whole mind, body, soul, you know, your health, your fitness, your relationships. We need to start understanding that there's a holistic view to each individual. But that's my couple cents on it.
Thank you, Nico. That's great. And actually, I was thinking about rite of passage and different things along those lines. Even in regard to families where we have a lot of grandparents who are raising grandchildren in New Mexico, and you know, just in my personal experience from family, you know, rite of passage, it involves some things like, you know, hunting, but it also may involve underage drinking. So it's a lot of those things kind of came to my mind as you mentioned that. And I would love to hear more from you all in regard to the grandparents raising grandchildren, and, you know, the generations and how it's so different. But I'll hand it over to Enrique. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's really interesting. So what we've done in my family, since we don't have those types of things, is when a young man turns 13, we gather men who are good examples, right? And that's based on us adults making that choice, right? But we get men who are good examples and have them create a circle for the young man turning 13 and give our advice on what it means to be a good man, on what it means to be a healthy man. And I think, you know, it's been something that we do in my family, starting with myself as a parent, doing that with my nephews and my son. And we're getting ready to do that for my grandson. But I think really it is hard in that, you know, the rites of passage when I was a young person were often involved, you know, things that are not necessarily safe and often things that are violent. So I think it's important for us to create these things and to, you know, fight this thing about men are kind of disposable, right? Our purpose in life is, you know, to go die for something else. If you look at what mainstream society really is about, and so we, you know, figuring out healthy ways to move beyond that, I think is great. So this has just been great to listen to everybody speaking and all that. So I really appreciate it. And I obviously I'm biased, but I appreciate Dr. Roybal and Diana Lopez and Larry and everybody, you know, that does this work. You know, makes my life happy.
Thanks, Enrique. Yeah, Those are great points. And on Facebook too, we're getting some questions in regard to rite of passage again. And I also wanted to add to, I work really closely with a lot of home visitors in our county, home visitors who give support to new mothers or new parents. And we recently had a dialogue session and we had some fathers there. And one of the most important and I think impactful things that our fathers shared with us at that dialogue session was that they want to be included in the visit. They want to be included. They ask them questions, engage, and gosh, it's just so impactful. And I started thinking about how, with new moms, why is it automatically asking the mom how she's doing, or like it should be the whole family unit, or the whole, the mother and the father equally. But I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was so impactful, and it kind of goes back to what Johnny was talking about, in regard to really acknowledging the father and looking at mom and dad as an equal unit. But again, there was that question about the rite of passage, if we want to talk about that, or also talk about the engaging dads in, as much as moms are engaged.
Just for the record, I could talk about that last bit for a long time. I won't start yet, but if anybody has any questions about some of the things we've seen working, but I will say it's absolutely imperative if we, and moms and dads typically aren't equal, and I'm not making gender expectations. I don't want to articulate any sort of like dads are supposed to act this way with their kids and moms are supposed to act that way, right? It's great if dad does a lot of stuff that maybe is more like most moms do it. And it's great if mom is doing some stuff with the kids that is maybe more like what a lot of dads do. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but there tends to be differences, right? And those differences are complementary. Those differences are vital and useful and helpful for our children to develop resilience, to develop language, to develop understandings about how the world works and how they can maneuver in it. We have to tread in some very scary territory with these men, which the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think this is a big issue with respect to how we talk about what healthy masculinity looks like. It's all well and good to talk about the nurturance and asking for help and all those things, and all those things are super important, but we also have to talk about sometimes men as kind of victims, which is a little weird, right? Because that's, let's face it, men have been dominant and domineering in a large social context for longer than any of us can remember, right? There's real valid, well-developed history of that sort of dominating presence, and it's not okay. It can't continue. And payback would destroy all of us. Like, we really need to recognize that sometimes moms accuse dads of hurting them or the kids because they are afraid of losing control of the kids. And I know that's a really hard thing to say, and that it always sets hackles up, but it happens. And when that happens and a man gets separated from his child because of a false accusation, it is brutal. And I don't have an answer. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to put it out there that we have to recognize that these things happen, and we have to start talking about, how to address them. And then I'll shut up after I say we do a program with the young men, with middle school age boys in Santa Fe called the New Futures Program. I'm not saying that we should all adopt it and pay Fathers New Mexico to do it everywhere. That's not what I'm saying, but that is such a crucial.
Put that in our chat also, so people can, and we can also put that on our Facebook as a link. So definitely we want you to share the work that you're doing out there so that we can get that out. And that is one of the purposes of this show, is to take what you are doing, Nico as well, and all of this different work, and let's get it out there, for our community. I want to ask, and then I'm going to circle back to Camille, because this hour goes by so fast. So before we wrap up in the last 10 minutes with kind of these like final thoughts and questions, I wanted to remind everybody that we will be doing a show next month. We will have Dr. Eliseo Torres, who will be talking about curanderismo, some of his projects. So we're talking about traditional medicine, traditional New Mexican medicine, traditional medicines from Mexico, and healing, and the intersection with public health in the state of New Mexico. And so please join us for that talk. And okay, so we have a few minutes. Camilla, I don't know if you have something prepared that you wanted to ask, and then we can jump into kind of our final thoughts and ideas about what do we need to invest in, what do we need to write in these policy things, what do we need to move forward, invest as much as we do in maternal health as in paternal health. Do we need a statewide assessment of single father and the different barriers and needs to be addressing? We're working on the root causes of violence in our state and our city. And so this is what I want after this question with Camilla. I want to, bring that kind of, where do we invest? What does this look like? And what would support, how do we address these root causes at this theme? So I'll let you take it away, Camilla. Thank you.
Actually, more interested in the engagement we're getting. Diane, was there another question on Facebook? And if not, I think Larry, you had your hand up. I think there's a good momentum going here already.
No question, just kudos to everyone, all of our speakers. And saludos to Fathers New Mexico from Matt Kroskian.
Larry, did you have something?
I just wanted to add real quickly that just coming from a family, sorry, my baby just slipped on the floor, she hurt herself. Just coming from a really dysfunctional family. I know we get a lot of talk about the family unity being one. That doesn't necessarily have to be, right? And families don't necessarily have to be together just because. And I think that low wages and so many other things and gender gaps make it very difficult for women to not be able to be single, and make it very difficult for them not to be able to do those things by themselves. So they're forced to be in relationships. And so it makes it difficult, right? And I just want to throw that out there real quickly. And then also, Johnny, we've had this conversation before. I was a single father for 16 years, right? And I was on welfare, and it was extremely difficult to get services, right? Everything was, we're going to check on the father. We're going to, everything is like, we're going to follow up on the father. But at the same time, I'm not saying that I was trying to put the CYFD on my ex or anything like that. But at the same time, it was, I couldn't get any help, right? And it was a very troubling system. And I think that's one thing we need to do, is make it easier both ways, right? For men to be able to be single fathers and get assistance, as well as women be able to have wages and everything, and childcare, because childcare is ridiculous, right? We're paying almost $200 and $300 a month right now on childcare. Who can do that, right? And it really does force women to stay home. At the same time, we live in a society that one income cannot afford a home. So, all these things are weighing in. And I want us to just kind of, think about those things, because, at the same time, I was thinking my family, I couldn't wait to get out of my family. Honestly, I don't know what anybody could have said or done to make that different back then, right? But all I can do is move forward, right? And but just to think about that is that, struggling families, there's a stigma too, right? For them to come and get help, right? It's hard to say I need help as a parent. And I'm just going to put that out there real quick. That's what I wish we could do more, is help develop relationships with parents with their kids, and kids with kids. Boys play with girls, girls play with, everybody plays together. I wish the first 5 grades would just be relationship building for kids, right? But I'm going to shut up, because I could speak all night too. But thank you all. I'm so happy to be in this space with you all.
Thank you. I'm hoping we're going to keep this conversation going even after, so that because we really need to put some sort of action to this conversation as far as, what I'm getting is that we have multiple layers. We need to address toxic masculinity, or the core root of a lot of these issues, and multiple layers. We need to do it at, not just the policy level, the parental level, to the student, all the way down into the education system, the after school programs, investment in young boys, investment in fathers. So we need this major kind of piece to be, brought out into the, the open, and really discussed. And we will keep all of your email addresses if you want to add them to the chat, guests that are jumping on, so that Anna and I could keep those, and possibly host another talk, maybe offline, where we can just hash out something through the Health Equity Council when we're talking about masculinity, and really thinking through supporting some of the efforts that are happening here. I'm going to let you give the final words, Camilla, my wonderful co-host, and thank you also for sharing your poetry and your work today. And so appreciate that. Appreciate all of you for being here. Felipe, thank you for taking the time. I think you're just huge, you're a great influence in the community, and for young men to see you as an educator, that's, I don't know the percentile of male educators in the state of New Mexico, but that's something that really needs to be promoted through the rungs. So we need to create these kind of pipelines, and I'm just seeing them at a systemic level. So this is just the very tip of the iceberg. This isn't even where, but we just, this is one of the fundamental root causes of a lot of the violence in the city. We're always at task to end violence, and how do we even end violence if we don't know what the fundamental causes of the root cause, and we need to start thinking, a little bit differently, a little bit deeper. And so thank you for that. Camilla, I'm gonna leave it to you. Thank you, Speed.
Hey, can I say something real quick before we head out? So, I think the reason why I was very, very safe and brought up with the mentality that to respect others and everything, it starts like my man said, the grades 1 to 5, right? 1 to 5 is where there's sponges and they're taking it all in. So I had a kid the other day bring in a lighter to school, right? And he's a great kid, little guy, 5th grader. And I told him, hey man, you can't bring that to school. And so he gave it to me. I took it to the office. At that point, I tell my principal, hey, we should have a discussion, like an assembly. Kinder first, then we do 2nd and 3rd, and then 4th and 5th throughout the day. And we have an assembly about what's appropriate language we could use, what's not appropriate to bring to school, what's unsafe to put in your backpack, what's unsafe play out on the playground, how to treat each other, the whole 9, right? And the response I got to that was, no, we cannot speak to these children about those subjects at this grade level. And I was blown away. I said, okay, hold up. We are depending now. Look at the conversation we had, right, guys? We had a conversation about how the homes are broken, single households, a lot of stress on both parents, not just the men. There's a lot of stress going on in these households. So we're depending on these households to have these discussions with kids about what's safe, what's appropriate, the correct way to treat each other. I said, we can't depend on that. We cannot depend on these parents to have these conversations with their kids because there's so much going on. Sometimes we have parents just dropping kids off at school on the curb, like go, and they off on their mission. So it really freaked me out to put it in that term, that we are not speaking to these kids. And APS was like, no, we are not allowed to speak to these children on these. So when do we have these conversations? When Washington Middle School has a shooting, when UNM campuses are having shootings, when God forbid an elementary school here gets some kind of, we need to approach this, man. And we need to approach it because toxic masculinity is happening in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grades. And we are turning a blind eye to it, I think, because they're kids. And we think just because they're kids, we'll just label it bullying and have a little letter sent home about bullying. It goes deeper and it goes beyond that. And so what we need to do as a community is call our education, there's a fucking term for it, but call these people at the Board of Educations and speak to the superintendents and hit their liaisons and hit all these people and let them know we need to speak to these kids. Because you know what? I'm just a volunteer and I can't get fired. I could be asked not to come back, but I will have these conversations with these kids to save a life. And if they ask me to not come back after I do that, well, then I feel like I earned that badge and I did a good job. And you know what, now I'll play my role from the sideline. But we need to step in and let these kids know, like, hey, man, this is not appropriate. And I was shocked, to say the least, that we couldn't have that conversation with these kids at that age, when these kids are already way more advanced than we were at 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, because they have the super highway, the internet, they have all this information given to them. So they are way more advanced than we're giving them credit for. And we need to give them the educational tools of speaking to them and saying, hey, look, we don't treat this person that way. If this person identifies a certain way, we respect that. We need to not bring this in your backpack. Just the basics. Like I said, man, we need to get back to the basics, and let's start with the kiddos. If we want men, when they're in their 16, 17, 26, 36, 46, whatever, to have the right mindset, it has to start when they're in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Because when we send them off into middle school, they already have been exposed to way too much. And here we are with all these different programs and these different situations that turn into domestic violence situations, that turn into divorces. Now, another quick thing that I wanted to say before I go is that victims create more victims. Okay, so when somebody is being victimized in their household, usually 90% of the time, the kids become the next victim. And those kids who are feeling victimized in their households go pick out a victim on their playground. And so we need to jump on that, you know, real quick, about starting these conversations in schools. We need to tap into the APS thing and see why we are not able to have these conversations, why it's taboo to speak about this. Because you know what, if we just keep turning the blind eye, we're going to have more Washington middle school incidents, we're going to have more UNM incidents, and we're going to be losing our youth. And you know, I'm all for it. They can't fire me, man. I'm a volunteer, so let's go. I'll do the dirty work.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you guys for having me, man. Happy holidays to everybody out there. God bless y'all.
Thank you. And we will be going off live. Camilla, if you wanted to close us out, and we will jump off live, and then all of our guests will remain on, and we will end our recording of the evening.
Thank you, everyone. This is a great conversation. It takes a village to raise a child, right? And I think we just found our tribe. So let's collaborate and use all these resources. And thank you to everyone who's involved in your children's lives, teams, coaches, teachers, uncles, artists. We're all going to make a difference. And thank you for everyone's kind words. Thank you for listening to my words also. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.